Hello, this is Shirish. Today I'm going to talk about a couple of little different things. One I want to talk about is the some of the objections that we have seen in the atheist community about the law of karma or the existence of life after the death and reincarnation, etc. A couple of things I want to mention, though, also, which are related to some of the other concepts in other religion. So, let me talk to you about one, which is the story of Adam and Eve and its relationship to the reincarnation, or why do we reincarnate, or karma. So the story of Adam and Eve as it goes is that they were naked as God had created Adam and the Eve from his rib. And so he was told that he can enjoy as much as he wants to, except he should not eat the fruit which was in the center of the Garden of Eden. And one day the Adam disobeyed the Lord, and or maybe the serpent made him disobey the law, and that particular sin became the universal sin, and we are all born because of the sins that were done by Adam and Eve. The question that arises out of that story is, are we responsible for the sins of our father and mother and forefathers and grandparents and so forth and so on? The answer is, we are kind of bound by universal consciousness, and we are interrelated. And we will not be 100% directly responsible for the sins of our fathers, mothers, grandparents, etc. However, we are attached to them in such a way that we must have done something partly right or wrong to get the benefits or the problems that we can face, that they face also. And that's of course seen genetically. I mean, muscular dystrophy is one of the bad diseases where young infants or young adults get muscular dystrophy and become disabled, and it is transmitted by the parents, and it must have some relationship with law of karma. But be that aside, let me try to explain what the Adam and Eve story really means. If you remember, in the story of Adam and Eve, initially they were naked. However, after they tested the fruit in the center of the Garden of Eden, they started covering themselves because they were ashamed of their bodies or something like that. So in essentiality, it was that they were created by the Lord, and they were using their sense organs so that they can live, they can survive. They were not having sense addiction or doing something to improve the pleasure that they would get from it. In my estimate, the Garden of Eden is your own body. It's never stated anywhere that it was an apple, so the center of the Garden of Eden is the sex organs. And when Adam and Eve had a sex for the pleasure and pleasure alone, but not procreation, this was prohibited. They became sense addict, or that was the universal sin for which we all, entire human generation, pays for it. Ideally, God gave us the senses so that we can live and not die in a winter. We can have a sense of covering ourselves in a heat or cold or rainy season and not die. We can eat when we are hungry so we don't die. Instead of that, we are indulging into these sense organ perceptions. And that is the universal sin. One of the major one, of course, the one which is quoted as story of Adam and Eve, is the sex. So that is a actual, or according to me, the explanation of story of Adam and Eve. Now, how does it relate to the law of karma? And my answer is that exactly what I was telling you in my previous videos. You have a circle of mind. You do an act which leads to an impression. The impression leads to a desire. Desire leads to an action. Action leads to an impression. So this particular circle holds true for all of us. And if we want to get a mukti or nirvana or freedom from all this, the only way is to block the pleasure or pain that sense organ experience have, and then only we can do the stuff. So that is one. I told you that I had read something also very interesting about a neurotheology. Neurotheology is a field where they try to explain whether our genetic experience, our genetic combinations and our experiences, can they be explained by stimulating certain parts of the brain or by certain use of certain chemicals. They had a guard helmet through which there was a magnetic field, and stimulating a temporal lobe area created certain, quote, illusion or experiences. So a few years ago, there was a gene which was invented, and it was called GARD gene. This particular gene is VMAT2. Repeat, VMAT2 gene. It is the one which packages a pump for neurotransmitters, the chemicals, the serotonin, the dopamine, that kind of chemicals in the brain, and they are transported because of this gene. And they thought that genetically there are certain people that believe in God or believe in experiences like ESP or transcendental evaluation, and it was felt that this was related to this gene. There are pros and cons to this, and I don't want to get into it, but certainly VMAT2 gene is an important one for neurotransmitters, but it alone does not lead to it, and if it does, then maybe that is genetically transferred again because of the law of karma. If I want to pursue my meditation practices or my behavior is to be modified so I don't get indulgence in the sense perception, then I would like to be reborn in a family where this is conducive. I would not like to be born in a family where father is alcoholic, mother is smoker or drug addict. So selection of the parents in that connection would be important, and I would like to see if this gene is really true, a God gene, to be born in the family where I will acquire it so I can pursue my desires to do that. So it is possible. It is also possible that this is nothing more. I want to quote you one study which is in the neurotheology. Their feeling is that when we shut off all the senses, so if the input that the brain gets, and some people feel it is prefrontal area, some people feel it is hippocampus, some people have some other areas. If we get total shutdown of sensory input, the brain cannot determine that it is self, which is what I call the ego. There is a universal ego and there is an ego which tells me that I'm separate from you, I'm separate from general public, I'm separate from a book, a table, a chair. However, if the entire sense perception is blocked by voluntarily doing meditation, one feels that you are touching the eternity. And this is exactly what happens with the successful meditation, that we are one with the eternity or the universal consciousness. Whether it is good, bad, or it is just the brain feeling it, I don't know. But certainly it is something to think about. I hope you like this video and will subscribe to it.